Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, the Brooklyn Nets. KD requested a trade. Kyrie opted in, but we know he's gonna go from Brooklyn soon. Are the Nets the biggest failure, the biggest failed experiment in NBA history? I'll start with you, Riv.
It got to be, right? I mean, this has pretty much been the most exhausting 3 years of NBA basketball from looking at the Brooklyn Nets perspective. I mean, you got the first year, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, they join, right? Kevin Durant's out for the season. Kyrie gets hurt 20 to 30 games into the season. Then the next season, they bring in Harden. They play one playoff series together against Boston. Harden gets hurt against the Bucks. Then Kyrie gets hurt later against the Bucks. Then this season, Kyrie goes through his situation. We couldn't predict COVID, obviously. All that stuff happened, so I'm just going to put that to the side. KD and Kyrie get healthy enough to play Boston, and they get swept. And it's like this team had so much potential. Walking into this season, they were heavy favorites with the Lakers to make the finals. They were heavy favorites to see the Lakers in the finals, and people just thought bringing these two guys together, these two guys who wanted to play with each other since that 2019 season, two guys who are as one of the most prolific scorers of our generation of what we've seen. We thought just coming in that they would come in and it wouldn't be this much drama. But being at this, we've seen, duos like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Steph, Draymond, we've seen all these type of duos, and this duo just hasn't accomplished anything. I mean, they haven't done anything in 3 years, but
one playoff win.
Caused nothing but mayhem and controversy throughout the whole media and just been dissing the media. They've been hurt, out of the lineup. They haven't been communicating. So it's like it has to be the biggest failure. Now, going into a new situation, hopefully we see something better. Kevin Durant wants out. Kyrie wants out. It sucks for Brooklyn because they expected them to be on the court, be able to play, get them a championship, or at least get close to a championship, but they wasn't able to do that. So for me, I know we had a segment about this, if them or the PG and Kawhi were the biggest failures, but I think this one pretty much clears now that they're about to break up.
Now that it's going to be over, or at least it seems as if it's going to be over, PG and Kawhi still have a chance. Now, I really tried to think of some teams that were put together to really try and make it where this wasn't the biggest failure. The only one that came to mind immediately was that Kobe, Nash, Dwight Howard team. That was really a disappointment, for sure. But
12-13 Lakers.
For sure. But then you think about, yes, like the question here is KD and Kyrie or the Nets in general. You just can't forget that James Harden was on this team. It was KD, Kyrie, James Harden. They played 16 games together. When they were on the court, all three of them, they were amazing. 13-3, amazing record. But the fact that it led to one playoff series win
against the Celtics,
not even a half a season out of James Harden being able to play with the Nets this past season. The reason why it's not just a disappointment on the fact that they weren't able to win a championship was it's also a failure because of what they had to give up to acquire this team. I mentioned it a little bit on the last episode. 2023 first-round pick swap, 2024 first-round pick, 2025 first-round pick swap, 2026 first-round pick, 2027 first-round pick swap. This is such a catastrophic failure because the Nets ruined a solid foundation that it took them years and years to recover after the first catastrophic failure of a trade that they had with the Boston Celtics. And they did a great job of servicing that situation with minimal. And it got to a point where they were actually able to hold their own, got KD, got Kyrie around a bunch of solid role players, and then they go and they trade for James Harden, and they haven't been able to fill that hole that Jared Allen left them either. And so then this is why you have to look at the Nets as the biggest failure in sports. And excuse me, well, I don't want to say sports, but at least in basketball history.
This is hilarious to me because I like some of the points you made, but you talk about the foundation the Nets built.
Shout out to Houston.
Oh, they came up.
Yeah,
they came up.
You talk about the foundation the Nets built. That foundation's best player was D'Angelo Russell, who now is currently the Timberwolves' fourth best player, and we're still not viewing them as championship favorites. So D'Lo as your best player is a first-round exit every single season. You take the KD Kyrie risk 10 times out of 10.
Oh, listen, I'm not saying
Although it
that.
failed, you take the risk 10 times out of 10.
I'm with you.
But you look at teams that have failed in the past, 04 Lakers, Kobe, Shaq, Peyton, Malone, even though the core of, Kobe and Shaq won championships, so you can't call that entire tenure a failure, but they definitely did not live up to expectations. They could have won more championships. the Rockets' big three: Barkley, Olajuwon, Pippen. Then you before that it was Drexler, the 12-13 Lakers, the Brooklyn Nets with Paul Pierce, KG, Darren Williams, Brook Lopez, Jason Terry, Andre Kurolenko.
We had a hunch on that one.
I mean, that team was supposed to at least make the conference finals. Jason Kidd's first tenure as a head coach. When you look at the Nets, and okay, if you view it in totality, you can argue it's the biggest failure. But when you individualize the seasons, it doesn't seem as bad as everybody's trying to make it out to seem like. The first season.
Whoa. No way are you trying. Do not let him off the hook with this.
You don't.
Do not let him off the hook with this.
I want to finish it. That's it. That's the only thing I'm allowing him the courtesy of.
Go ahead. Please, go ahead.
The Nets in 1920, the first season, KD redshirt season, torn Achilles, recovering from it. Okay. The 2021 season, what happens? They're hurt. They don't have much continuity, but when they do play, they're 13-3. Is anybody here doubting the Nets would have won the championship had they been healthy?
Kyrie, but keep going.
Kyrie injures his ankle, and James Harden has a hamstring injury and plays on a grade 2 hamstring, which lingered on to this past season, and Harden wasn't able to be himself. Then this past season, the last season of these Nets, Kyrie Irving refuses to get the vaccine, COVID, the mandate in Brooklyn, which it was the vaccine mandate was really only in Brooklyn. Had Kyrie and KD, had this duo been anywhere else that's not in the state of New York, they would have been playing.
Or LA.
Or LA. So really, it's unfortunate that it was in New York, but that's the circumstances. But you look at the 3 seasons. The first one redshirted by KD. The second one, injuries were the reason why they didn't get past the Bucks. It took really Kevin Durant's foot being on the line.
Oh, so we just disregard overtime.
But really, that should have been the shot.
He didn't make a shot.
That should have been the shot. And he was playing with James Harden, who couldn't even run. Like he couldn't even. He had no burst.
He was missing wide open jumpers. Also,
you don't have your legs under you. You're playing through a grade 2 hamstring. That's a. You
shoot at the park. There's sometimes where you don't even. Bro,
that's a 4-week recovery time injury.
Okay, first and foremost,
thank you,
the reason why you letting him off the hook with this, whatever this grade injury is that you letting him off the hook with, the reason why you letting him off the hook with it is because it's a hamstring. You're completely leaving out the fact that he showed up to camp 25 pounds overweight. That's number one. Add that to the fact that the next season, Mr. Kevin Durant, who said, and Mr. Kyrie Irving, who also said, quote, I was astonished at how out of shape he was. Rewind the clock back to Mr. Kyrie Irving when you just said that he got hurt in the playoffs. Did this dude not play 20 games the year before that? And what happened why he only played 20 games? The reason why he only played 20 games, because he got hurt. The only time that he was healthy was when he was with James. That was the only time that he was healthy. So we should have saw this coming years ago. This whole thing, we should have been like, this is going to be a disaster. But you know what? On paper, it looked like it was phenomenal. We get KD together with Irv and with James Harden. How could this thing not work? Completely disregarding who these guys actually are, how problematic Kyrie Irving is, as good as a talent he is, as good as a talent as he is, how aloof he is. James Harden, who only shows up when he's ready to play, which is never. Like he said last season that just passed, when he said, quote, I couldn't run the whole summer. The reason why you couldn't run the whole summer was because you were out of shape. And that's why he breaks down at the end of the season, because he plays himself into shape. What elite athlete plays themselves into shape during the season? I don't really know many. I think Shaq did it, and it started to catch up with him. James Harden, that's happening to him right now. Now, since we're talking about the Brooklyn Nets, this sounded like a good idea. This sounded like a great idea. The only guy who actually showed up and did his job was KD. He was the only one, even though he started to break down. He broke down last year with the hamstring and missed half the season. This year, it was an unfortunate injury with his knee. But they were at the top of the Eastern Conference before that happened. However, he was the only one who showed up and did his job. And when I look at this thing being a disaster, I mean, we could say that the 15-16 Warriors was a disaster, but they did end up winning it. We could say that, like you just said, we could say that the Rockets was a disaster with Drex and Olajuwon and Barkley. Barkley was over. Drex was on the other. I'm sorry. Barkley was over. Scotty was still in his prime. Drex was already gone. Scotty was still in his prime. And Olajuwon was on the other side of it. But that 12-13 Laker team, I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty that was the one because Steve Nash was 38.
He broke his back.
Yeah, Steve Nash was 38.
That was the year that Kobe at the very end, he tore his Achilles that season.
Tore his Achilles,
yeah.
I mean, Dwight Howard was 27 years old, and the mix just didn't work.
Dwight was underwhelming.
When I look at this Brooklyn dynamic, we should have known, but we had blinders on because it looked so good initially that we were thinking, yo, this is going to work. When in reality, this had no shot.
And you're right, OG. We should have known. I did know. I tweeted when the moves happened that they would never get past the second round with the KD Kyrie duo. When Harden got traded, did I think they would win the championship? Yes. Would they have won the championship had they stayed healthy? Absolutely. Harden couldn't run in the offseason because he had a grade 2 hamstring that he just played over 100 minutes on in the playoffs because he wanted to win a championship. That is the will of somebody who wants to win. He was coming off one of his best playoff series versus the Boston Celtics. The year before, coming from Houston, he averaged 30 points in that entire playoff run. James Harden shows up. He risked his body to win a championship with the Nets. He risked his body, and it didn't happen. That's unfortunate, but I want to say this. You're right. As a totality, does it look like a complete failure? Yes, but did these Nets go through a situation where they were embarrassed the same way the Clippers were embarrassed when they blew a 3-1 lead in the bubble to the Clippers?
They just got swept.
That's not as bad as blowing a 3-1 lead. That's not as bad as blowing a 3-1 lead.
Embarrassing it is.
That's not as bad as blowing a 3-1 lead. Hey,
let me tell you why it's embarrassing. All right, can I do that?
Keep on.
Because they got swept in round 1, and the guy who abandoned ship and left, he at least made it to round 2. At the minimum. They didn't win a single game. The guy that said, I'm out of here, this is dysfunctional. Is that not embarrassing
versus
to you?
the team that got to the finals?
Jay, you also leaving out the fact, Jay, that not only did they get swept, like Kyrie Irving isn't over. He's 31 years old. KD isn't over. These guys are in the middle of their prime. And
Kevin Durant's in the middle of his prime?
Absolutely.
I would say that.
He's not in the middle. He's not in the middle, but he's still in his prime.
I think he's on the other side. He's on the other side.
In his prime still.
No, he's on the other side.
He's on the other side of it. But you completely leaving out James Harden. We thought he had a fat suit on before he got traded.
It was the angle of the picture. It was the angle of the picture.
Right. We thought he had a fat suit on. Do you understand how difficult it has to be? When I saw him, I'm thinking to myself, this dude literally has to be 25 pounds overweight. You know how difficult it is to gain 25 pounds as a pro athlete? You have to do nothing. And this guy made this thing so complicated. And now you want to let him off the hook because he had a grade 2 injury and he risked his body. No, he didn't. In fact, he didn't do anything to his body. That's how he got that grade 2 injury.
I don't know about that, OG. That season, he was unbelievable.
James Harden was an MVP candidate. It just so happened that the first minute of the Bucks series in Game 1, he was going for a routine layup, and his hammy just gave out.
Harden was fantastic. But 2021.
Before you go, Riv, I have a question.
His game is never in question. His game is. I've never questioned James Harden's game. I've always questioned James Harden's commitment to his body, and it's starting to catch up with him.
Well, don't worry, because you are going to stop asking those questions after James Harden comes back to all NBA form this upcoming season. That's what's going to happen because he now has the full offseason to train. And they just got PG Tucker, DeAnthony Melton. Philly's making a run for the championship.
It just occurred to me what OG's talking about the fat suit, because not only did it happen again this season, it happened when he was on the Rockets. That's what
he was referring to.
See, but then I immediately thought about this season too.
But that was the angle of the photo, though.
I'm not saying you're fully wrong, but
no, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. They took a photo of him the literal next day, and he looks like 25 pounds slimmer.
It happened 2 seasons in a row. That's why it's concerning. But I understand what you're saying now. Yes, Harden was amazing last season, but it took him working himself into shape where he's older now. It took a toll on him, and it ended up costing him.
This past offseason, I do give him a pass because he wasn't able to train. He was rehabbing his hamstring the entire offseason. That's why he came into the season out of shape.
Stop letting him off the hook with that. Why is that?
I'm going to blame him for getting injured?
Yes, you are. You know why? Because Kevin McHale told us in 2015, quote, James Harden showed up to camp out of shape. He told us this 8 years ago. This is who James Harden is. He plays himself into shape, which is why when the playoffs start And when we go deeper into the playoffs, his game suffers. And why does his game suffer? Because he breaks down.
Let me ask you guys a question. These 3 Nets seasons, have either one of these been as catastrophic of a failure as these past Lakers this year? They were projected to win 52.5 games. They won 33. That's the greatest deficit from preseason odds to the regular season that the league has ever seen.
I'll happily end. Oh, go ahead, Riv. I'm sorry. I feel like you haven't spoken.
You said they would win 60 games.
No, listen. They were disappointing.
They won half of that.
No, but my whole thing is
is this Lakers season not more disappointing than every season?
So
they won a title.
Single out this one season.
They won a title.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. In totality, the Nets do sound like the biggest failure. But when you individualize it, there's context for each season.
I understand what you're saying. All right, so I want to get these words in. You singling out this one Lakers season benefits your argument.
Last season they lost in the first round.
Fine. They won games at least. Now let's go back to, and the Nets won 0 this past season.
All right.
The year before that, they were champions. Okay, so if you want to just single out one season, fine. Your argument seems so crystal clear. But let's look at the totality of LeBron James's tenure in LA. At minimum, they have a championship. You can't say the same about the Nets. They have one playoff series win.
Not only that, Jay, what you can't minimize is you can't minimize getting smoked in the playoffs. You can't minimize that. When you get smoked in the playoffs, you're not close to winning it. And the reason why they brought this group together was why?
To win a championship.
It was a different group, though.
And they got smoked. They didn't lose. They got smoked. So that means we're not close, which is why we have to tear this thing down. It's one thing to get. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Yeah, you're good.
But it's one thing to get. It's one thing to lose in the first round. But when you get swept, I stand on the logic that when you get swept out of the playoffs, I don't care if it's the first round or it's the finals. You get swept out of the playoffs, you're not close to winning it. And for these dudes to get mopped out of the playoffs in round 1, I don't think that they're close. That's the same thing with the Lakers. The same logic with the Lakers, but Brooklyn in particular. When you get smoked in round 1, you're not close to winning it.
I agree with you. And should the Nets have won at least a game or two? Absolutely. But what I think people are overreacting to the entire tenure when there's context behind it. It's unfortunate that COVID had to happen and Kyrie did not want to get the vaccine. Harden's injuries and Harden and Kyrie both got injured in the playoffs. But when you look at these seasons from an individual standpoint, just individualize each season. I don't think neither of these seasons are a top 5 catastrophic season in NBA history. You look at the 93.
Have to take the whole tenure into account.
You look at the 93-94 Sonics, who were supposed to win a championship after MJ retired. They lost in the first round to the 8-seeded team. First time that's ever happened.
Who was the 8-seeded team?
The Nuggets.
Denver.
The Mavericks in 2007, upset by the Warriors in the first round. Dirk wins an MVP after they get upset. He gives his speech, one of the most awkward moments ever. These past Lakers in the 2021-22 season, this is by far a bigger failure than any of these 3 Nets years.
But why are you going by single season and not tenure?
Because it adds more context the tenure.
No, the whole point of is this KD Kyrie Nets did KD and Kyrie only play one season together? No, you have to take it into this whole. They knew that Kevin Durant was going to be shelved for that first season. So we already know a year of Kevin Durant's career was going to be basically wasted. The whole point was getting ready for that second season. They didn't win more than one playoff series. This past season, they got swept. You have to take everything into account.